Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove, and I'm joined by a man who I've offered $4 billion to move up and down a bit, and he said no. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. Well done. Well done there.
But it'd be good for you to move up and down a bit.
Yeah,
$4 billion.
Yeah, but I'm already very invested in not moving up and down, so I'm just not sure if it's worth it for me to expend that level of energy right now.
So I'm hoping people will be laughing at our analogy.
Yeah.
If you are confused by the analogy, here's what happened. I think this morning the story broke. The Sports Business Journal broke the story that Ricardo Silva's group, MP & Silva, offered Major League Soccer a $400 billion 10-year media rights contract with a little condition attached.
Was it $400 billion?
Yep.
Oh, my goodness.
No, I'm sorry, it was $4 billion.
Thank you.
Yeah. It was $400 million a year, $4 billion.
There it is. Yeah. I was like, whoa, that changes things for me.
Well, my guess is even if it was $400 billion, MLS still might not have taken it.
They would have to.
Because the story is MLS took the meeting, then said no.
Yeah. I think, and one of their justifications was that they already have TV deals with people through 2023, and then those companies have renegotiation rights.
Yeah, exclusive renegotiation rights, meaning they're not even legally allowed to sit down and or they're not allowed to sign a contract with someone else about media rights before they talk to the broadcasters like Fox and ESPN.
But if they're offering $400 billion, I'm pretty sure you take that and you pay out whatever you got to pay out. Yeah, I think so.
So you think maybe they're just trying to get 10 times the offer, or no amount of money will make MLS go for pro-rel?
I mean, I doubt anyone's going to offer $400 billion, although in this market, who knows? I think that's might be what PSG are going to pay for Neymar, so who knows?
That's their next bid.
Yeah.
That's their next bid. All right, so did you see this story this morning? I mean, I saw it in a tweet. How did you see it?
I saw it on Twitter, yes, with a lot of people saying jokes about Major League Soccer and $4 billion, and jokes about how this wasn't really a real offer. So it was more about I saw the reaction to the story, and then I went and found the story.
What's the thing about it not being a real offer then?
Well, essentially, it's I forget who it was. I think it was an ESPN journalist, so I apologize for not knowing the name off the top of my head. But it was essentially knowing that Major League Soccer wasn't going to accept the deal, or or maybe even couldn't legally enter into discussions about the deal because then they'd be in violation. So it essentially allows the people to put forth this offer that they know isn't going to get accepted, but allows them to say, well, see, we tried to get relegation promotion. We gave them an absurd amount of money, 10 times what they're already getting, and they wouldn't even take that. Or 4 times, I think.
No, it is 10 times, I think. Sorry, 4 times. All right, we're going to get these numbers right. Okay, so right now it's $100 million a year. This deal was $400 million a year for 10 years.
Yeah.
So yes, 4 times.
Yeah, and so I think it was sort of a way to say, that was at least the one approach, was that it was a way to say, see, we offered this money, and they wouldn't even take that. So no matter what we do, they're so entrenched in the kind of single ownership structure that there was no really way to get them going, so now we can reinvest it in other leagues. Yeah,
so the other thought here is Ricardo Silva, as I understand it, is the Miami FC owner, who is the same person who I think, I may be wrong about this, but I'm pretty confident he's the guy that commissioned a report about the business benefits of pro-rel, because he wants his Miami FC team, I believe, to be able to leap over David Beckham's forthcoming Miami team, possibly forthcoming, and join Major League Soccer, or at least be part of the big leagues.
Right. Yeah, I think that's definitely part of it, and then I think it's also just that maybe it provides more stability overall would be his argument, that because I think it was the actual system that he had in mind was that NASL becomes Division 2, and it's basically the MLS teams that would get relegated go to NASL.
He elbows USL out the way as well.
But it becomes but it would be a weird thing where then it's weird in my mind because of the way the system is now. But obviously, if you're a Premier League team and you get relegated to the Championship, you're a Championship team now. But in my mind, it's really weird for an MLS team to become an NASL team. But that would be the system that he had in mind.
Okay, it's kind of like an indecent proposal.
Yeah, right? It feels that way,
Robert
just a little
Redford
bit.
Style one?
Yeah, sure. I think, kind of.
So I've got to say, I would say if Silva's plan was to embarrass Major League Soccer or to prove that they're not fully interested in promotion relegation, which I think they'd already said they weren't, right? Yeah. Then it's kind of mission accomplished, right?
I think so.
He's maybe saved himself $4 billion as well.
Well, I think what maybe went in his favor is that the initial reporting was more about the numbers because the numbers are so big.
MLS turns down $4 billion deal because it included pro-rel.
Exactly.
The headline writes itself.
And the reality is that, at least as far as I understand and what the follow-up kind of coverage has been, is that, it's that, again, they have these contracts that they can't get out of that they've offered exclusive renegotiation rights to, so then you're in breach of contract. On top of that, the current deals go through, 2023?
Yeah.
So then it's a $4 billion offer that starts in 2023 and goes through 2033. And if you're Major League Soccer, which has kind of built itself on not overexpanding, on not kind of messing things up early to then have them go very bad late, that is sort of like, well, now we're taking a bunch of money that's like way down the road that we don't know what's going to happen. And suddenly if you tie yourself into this deal and then that company goes bankrupt or any number of things can happen, suddenly you put yourself in this position where, say, you spend that money or you plan for your entire model and then come 2023, that company doesn't exist or doesn't have the finances to be able to do that or whatever situation arises, suddenly you're in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, if there's like a great recession of 2021.
Yeah.
So part of me thinks like, I hope that's not a prophetic moment on this podcast.
Yeah.
Part of me thinks that I wish MLS had taken the deal because it would have just. I'm kind of a big fan of just things suddenly changing. You know what I mean? I like to embrace change and see what happens. And we talked about video assistants for referees for so long, and it felt like it would never ever happen. Right?
Yeah.
We talk about pro rel in MLS, and there's so many reasons why it won't happen, but maybe one day it will. Yeah. And so I was ready for like a complete game changer.
Well, this reminds me of.
So maybe Ricardo Silva got me as well.
Well, this reminds me of. I think I maybe talked about this on the air, but I might not have. There's the whole story that like essentially there are plans in place for like flying cars to be in operation by like 2021 or something, and I think
Kevin Smith says it's way too late.
Well, I think the main story, I don't even get that reference.
There's like an obscure 10-minute film with the actors from Clerks where they're sitting there in traffic complaining for like 10 minutes about how we were promised flying cars and here we are in traffic.
I mean, or like any sci-fi film.
Randall and Dante.
There you go. But any sci-fi film that was set in like 2007 where we all flying cars also says it's too late. But basically, I think the story was that like Uber has invested in the idea that there will be flying cars in like Houston or something like that. Like that will be their entire Uber fleet will be self-piloting flying cars. I know it's insane, but they think they have the technology to do it by 2022 or 2021.
All right.
And my wife, who's in law school, her point was like, well, there's no way that's going to happen.
Because of like legislation.
Exactly. Because I was like, well, they might have the technology. And she was like, yeah, but like who... Then is it air traffic control? Is it air traffic control situation? Is it FAA? Is it like DMV? Who's going to control what? And that's going to take so much legal framework that there's just no way it can happen in that time frame.
So you're drawing a parallel between that and Major League Soccer?
Yeah. So it sort of is like to your point, we spent years being like, can we have a person review something with a camera that's already there, and then we can determine like that took years and years and years. Pretty sure you're not rolling out promotion relegation in like a 4-year span.
Okay, so before we move on to USA Jamaica, because that's really what we came in this room for today.
Which, again, I just want to add that I'm not against relegation promotion, don't get me wrong.
You're trying to cover your bases here.
No, but I want to make it clear that like I think it would be interesting, but I also don't think that it's like... I like the idea, but I don't like the idea that could potentially destroy everything. Right. Like, I'd rather it be
so you want to be a bit cautious about how... Okay. So one thing that worries me is... the fact that this was Ricardo Silva, and he's like so pro NASL and pro RAL, and it seems to be a little bit of trolling maybe with this offer, is a reminder that the various factions of American soccer are against each other. Like, even though they say they're all working towards the same goal, this really comes down to the idea that like NASL and MLS are not on the same page. And you could be one of those people that thinks like healthy competition between leagues is good, but I'm not so sure I agree with that. I think a soccer country and a soccer system works better when everybody's going in the same direction and agrees of what the rules are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but I think, I mean, that it's worth noting there that like, but then it's also maybe not fair to say that like to vilify Silva and NASL, being like they're the ones who are agitating. Like, I think I don't even they would definitely feel like they're the aggrieved party.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I understand that. Yeah, I don't want to push and blame. I want to say I just wish there was a. I mean, I'm kind of a like what's the word? Idealist. Like I would just prefer to have everybody on the same page and shaking hands and maybe even hugging.
Yeah, or like a logical system in place that would help everybody understand what's going on from youth level all the way through professional. Yeah, that might be nice.
Okay, should we put a pin in this for now?
Sure.
And we can maybe talk about the Gold Cup final, which will feature two teams that have benefited greatly from Major League Soccer.
Yep.
Pro rel or no, the USA and Jamaica. I say that because Jamaica coach Theo Whitmore said, MLS has been great for our players.
I think USL was like, what's up, man? Give us a shout out here. You're starting at USL forward in there.
Mario Williams, banging him in for USL.
Shout out to Charleston.
Patrick. Yeah.
And Atlanta, I suppose.
Yeah. So, okay, before we get deep into this game, maybe we should talk about the fact that it's not USA-Mexico.
Yeah.
Right? We all kind of thought Gold Cup final is going to be USA-Mexico. And here we are, the third Gold Cup final in a row since 2011 that has not featured USA-Mexico. There's that Gio dos Santos goal in 2011 that was the downfall of Bob Bradley. Then there was 2013 USA Panama, 2015 Jamaica Mexico, and now here we are 2017 USA Jamaica.
If only some visionary had jinxed Mexico ahead of that game.
Is that what you were doing?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I kept thinking you were just taking it for granted that Mexico were going to win the semi-final.
It might have started that way, to be honest, but no, it definitely ended up trying to be a deliberate jinx. Not that I actually believe that.
All right, well, here's a question: why didn't you want to play Mexico? Because I would have been more excited for a USA-Mexico final.
I mean, it certainly would have helped the numbers.
That's what I'm saying. Full disclosure, we definitely get more downloads when USA play Mexico because it's huge. More people are suddenly interested and passionate about a game.
Yeah, and in actuality, I've seen a couple different like Mexico journalists or like Mexico fans that I follow on Twitter saying like this might be for the best actually.
Why so?
Because it's probably better to be knocked out in the semifinals when you brought your B team, when your coach is suspended, than when all of that stuff is the case. But now it's in the final against the United States.
That's true, because if this had have been USA-Mexico in a sort of alternate reality, it would be kind of close to USA's A team, right? You could call this the A- or the B+ team for USA. It's B team at best for Mexico because all the best guys went to the Confederation Cup.
This is true.
With all due respect to Cubo Torres.
Yes.
Although he should have scored that header. So
also yes. Yeah, and so I mean, and again, I think you can't overstate the fact that a lot of people don't like him. A lot of Mexico fans especially don't like him. But Juan Carlos Osorio wasn't there. He's suspended. He's watching from behind plexiglass.
He was there, but he was in a glass case of emotion.
Yeah, indeed. Didn't we call that the Diego Simeone punishment box? Yes. I think, or punishment cube, isolation cube, something like that. Yep.
It's going to be interesting to see what happens to Osorio after this tournament, right? There's a little debate seems to be starting. Should he stay or should he go? Or should he be pushed out?
Yes. And I think that was evident in the reactions of a lot of fans. I think there was a decent amount of footage captured of fans in the stands after that game chanting decidedly negative things about Juan Carlos Osorio.
So shall we start then with a focus on Jamaica, the victors in that game with a 87th, 88th minute free kick from Kamal Lawrence. They Jamaica beat Mexico 1-0. Before we talk about how the US should maybe set up against Jamaica, let's get into what Jamaica are.
Sure. And what they are is an unexpected finalist. And that comes from a number of different people that I've seen. Essentially, there are like echoes of well, not echoes, but this team is very reminiscent of the Cameroon team that ended up winning the African Cup of Nations this past year, where it was sort of not the big names that a lot of people know.
Yeah, no Wes Morgan, for example, no Giles Barnes.
Yeah, and like some domestic players, some lesser-known players, some young players.
Montego Bay United.
Yep, a relatively new coach, at least, that maybe people aren't as familiar with, and they kind of grind out results. They never look completely inspiring. They never look like wildly impressive, but they get the results and make their way through the tournament.
Yeah, you just described the Mexico game, right?
Yep.
So what did we see in that semi-final, which Jamaica won 1-0?
I mean, Andre Blake. That was the number one thing I saw. And I know
a lot of Andre Blake reactions.
Yeah, right? And I know that's like, and we are going to get into more of it later because I don't just want to say like, oh, it's Andre Blake. That's the only reason why they won.
That's kind of the narrative, and it's like it's partly true, but it's not. It's not the whole story.
No, but I think it's the easiest way to start because to say like, oh, a really disorganized defense or periodically good attacks, but then giving the ball away and putting themselves in, like that's all too much because I think it goes too negative immediately. But the reality is that there were a lot of situations in which Andre Blake had to bail out his team, and he did so.
That's true, yeah. I think maybe if someone like, say, to pick a name at random, Patrick Pemberton had been in goal for Jamaica, they're not making it to the final.
Nope. Although there were shades of his performance in Mexico's goalkeeper on that free kick, but we can talk about that later on.
Oh, okay. So what outside of Andre Blake making several really good stops, nothing to rival his save against Canada, by the way, full stretch, top corner. What would you say? Because I'm also coming at this with the idea that like Jamaica would look at Mexico as a sort of equal standard to the United States. Therefore, they're going to try and they'll treat the US the same as they treated Mexico tactically in terms of how much they're willing to come and attack versus how much they defend. And what I saw was a team that was very happy to sit back.
Yes, I think so. I mean, happy at times to have every single outfield player behind the ball, like 25 yards from goal.
So it's like a 4-4-2, but really deep.
Yes.
Really deep.
And I think that was especially the case when Mexico started to play into their hands a little bit, because I think Mexico were happy for Mexico to have the ball out wide and to serve the balls into the box. That's not to say that Jamaica were particularly adept at dealing with those crosses.
No.
But Mexico kind of shot themselves in the foot and missed a few good chances, but then didn't really attack them, didn't really find good chances, and ended up just kind of putting in bad cross after bad cross.
And I saw a back four that wasn't particularly organised, as in there was a wobbly offside line, there was some kind of fluffed clearances. When those crosses came in, it was like a clumsy header that went the wrong way. Then someone would have to like stretch out and get a toe to it, and then someone would fall over. Literally, I saw Jermaine Taylor fall over after he'd kept someone onside and really get lucky.
He wasn't the only one. There's a couple of different Jamaicans falling down.
They didn't concede on that. So I saw a lot of like clumsy, but in the end, effective defending because the ball just got cleared in the end.
Yeah. And so sometimes it got cleared. Sometimes I think you spotted the ball went to Javon Watson. And if Jamaica were trying to play the ball out of the back, it went to Javon Watson. I think a big part of that is because Kevin Lambert, who's also started kind of routinely alongside him in the center midfield for Jamaica, was suspended against Mexico.
Okay.
So if you're losing one of your two midfielders, central midfielders that is, maybe you play through the one that you have a little more faith in.
Yeah.
Especially because I forget who came in for Richie came in and deputized. And we saw him like really struggle to play the ball quickly. He got dispossessed a couple times.
I saw him wait too long for a ball and it didn't get to him.
Yeah.
Just a Mexico player took it off him.
Yeah, so I think as the game progressed, maybe Jamaica looked at that and said, yeah, we're going to pass to the guy who we know can then complete a pass. But you're going to have Lambert back, so I think that's maybe going to help them have a little bit more stability through the middle.
But I'm going to say, I agree with that. So Javon Watson and Lambert will be the two central midfielders.
Yeah.
It looked to me like Javon Watson had the guy with the most composure and the softest feet in central midfield. And I think they'll still be looking for him. Jamaica will look to play through him in their most composed moments. Yeah. And I think part of the US's plan maybe should be get after Javon Watson.
Yeah, I think so. I think so.
Maybe cut out the pass entirely or just be on his back immediately.
I think be on him immediately because you still kind of because you want to set up like the trap, right? You want to look like you're not marking him, and then as soon as Andre Blake goes to take that goal kick and kind of like does the instep setup pass, you're already there stepping to Javon Watson.
Surprise, Javon Watson.
Exactly. You got to spring the trap. You got to set it and then spring it.
Okay, so we talked about Jamaica's defending, right, which was sort of effective in that they were disciplined in staying back, but not necessarily sort of organised in terms of their shape.
Right.
Is that fair?
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
were. That's to say they were compact as well, right?
Yeah.
So they weren't just like sitting back. They were compact, but they were still sort of not quite holding a line correctly. I think there's opportunities to get in behind there. When we start talking about picking the US team, maybe we can focus on how we do that. I want to talk about what Jamaica do on the break, the attacking threat they pose,
which
is not nothing, and it is fast.
Yeah.
And Darren Mattocks, who were number 10, I believe, is a player to be scared of.
Yeah, I mean, because he does have that pace that I mentioned, but more than that, he has the kind of the technical ability to really embarrass defenders. And I think a big part of that comes from a lot of times he found himself in 1v4 situations where he was the only guy up there. Sometimes he was with Romario Williams. Sometimes he would get ahead of Williams. And I think in those moments, the Mexican defenders just thought like, oh, okay, he's going to hold the ball up. He's going to wait for 2 or 3 guys to come in. Then they're going to, oh, no, he beat me. And it was just like a really quick step over. As soon as he stood him up, then he'd go.
Do you feel like he's very good at like lulling you into a sense of, oh, it's all calmed down a bit. I've got him. And go, oh, where's he gone? Where's he gone?
And it feels a
Wile
little...
Coyote.
And it feels a little... And sort of like that in the sense that like...
No, sorry, like Roadrunner. I got the wrong way around.
But it works. Yeah, but in that case, the Mexican defender is Wile Coyote, where they're like, okay, this is the way it's going to go. I've got it all planned up. And then it completely, you just have missed the obvious vulnerability here.
Like, just stand there while I get my Acme explosives.
Yeah, but it went so far as to at times it felt like Maddox was like flouting convention, where it was like, no, you have to slow it up and wait for your teammate and pass the ball. You're not allowed to dribble to the end line, but then cut back and then almost get a shot off. That's not okay. And it kept happening. So I think that's the thing where if a U.S. defender gets isolated in a 1v1 situation, that's not going to be good because he has got that skill.
Am I right in thinking that Maddox drifted left?
Yes.
So the defender he'd be isolated against, again, we'll talk about picking the team later, but it's going to be Graham Zuzi or Eric Lehigh or maybe Omar Gonzalez over there. So it's possibly a rough night for those guys.
Suddenly got nervous.
One-on-one. The other thing is, you mentioned that he would look like he was waiting for his teammates to join, but then he would do something on his own. One of the things I noticed is that when Jamaica counterattacked, they counterattacked at pace, like Mattocks would go fast, or Romario Williams would go fast, or one of the two wingers would go fast, but pretty much no one else would join the attack. It seemed like they had, at most, 4 attackers on the break. So it's a dangerous break, and they're committing the 4 players forward at pace, but they're not committing any more so that there's no space, there's no real space in behind. They're very clever about not overcommitting. I think that's disciplined.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And I think it's also like a key point there is that they never commit anybody else. So even if it is 2 players on the break and maybe 2 players trailing 20 yards behind, after that there's not much else coming. And so it is sort of like you've got those 4 in there and they're going to take those chances when they can get them, but they're not going to suddenly have 7 people in the U.S. half trying to make something work. It's still going to be a very spread team
Yeah.
in the terms of 4 committed forward, everybody else hanging back.
So if we want the US to not make like Mexico and like kind of sit off and be like, oh, Matex is going to wait for someone to join him, what do we do? Like, do you go and step in on him early? Because then he can blow past you. That's the danger, right?
I would say you step in before the player gets the ball, because what I saw a lot of times was Jamaica would try. They really, it would be one player carrying the ball like 70 yards at times. And I think that...
Often Alvis Powell just going from right back as far as he can go. Almost like he's a running back or a kick returner. He's just trying to get as far as he can before he gets tackled.
Yep. But it felt like a lot of times they would try to do that, especially Alvis Powell, for example, would try to do that regardless of where he was on the field. So if he got the ball 10 yards from his own end line, but he saw that channel, he would go. And it did feel like there were times when Jamaica were a little bit sloppy, dribbling it out from when they were within like 30 yards of their own goal. Once they got a little further away from that, then that was where they seemed like more confident, could kind of turn that corner and go.
Yeah.
And so I think a key part is to put them under pressure really early when they are closer to their goal, because it seemed like that was where they might trip up, or that's where they might just end up hoofing it long to nobody.
So you sound like a 2000. This is going to sound silly, but maybe a 2009 Barcelona Guardiola type thing, where the goal was when you turn the ball over, when you're attacking, get on them immediately. I know it's silly to like draw the comparison with Barcelona, because that's like maybe the greatest team of all time is that 2009 team, right? But the idea of like try and win it back really fast to cut out the counter-attack, almost for your own survival rather than because that's your best attacking look.
Yeah, I think so. And because it stops them from having their best attacking look as well. Yeah, I think so.
But I'll say, this is the credit I want to give Jamaica. It will be maybe easier said than done, because all of these guys were super competitive and super athletic.
Yeah.
And that's a really dangerous combination, right? Because they will, even if you get a tackle in, they will keep going and like try and muscle you off the ball, and they'll make sure to at least have a go at winning it back. Yeah. It's not like they give up and be like, off you go then.
Yeah. Now, the other side to that, though, which I would say is definitely an area of opportunity for the United States, is like a lot of players did this. I don't just want to keep like harping on Alvis Powell, but there was one, again, that I think you spotted where he went on a good like 50-yard run, and then he took his time getting back.
Yes, he did. He walked back slowly.
And it wasn't like Mexico like had a throw in or had a goal kick and he slowly walked. Like Mexico had possession in Jamaica's half, and Alvis Powell was like slow, like I'll say jogging, but that might be generous in terms of how quickly he was getting back. So it does feel like if you can catch them on that counter in the right moment, there are going to be large amounts of space in behind.
But I feel like it's only going to be...
Not in behind, rather, but in the channel, I guess.
It's only going to be Alvis Powell, because he had that... I don't think Kamal Lawrence does it as much, the left back. Alvis Powell does a thing where he just takes off, and you can see him out of breath afterwards, because that sequence you're talking about,
hands on
when
knees,
he finally gets back, it was hands on knees and breathing heavily. So yeah, it might be just like, remember that Powell's going to leave that hole if you dispossess him when he goes forward, and go down that left wing. Go on, Darlington.
So then I think, so if we're looking at keys for the USA, it's going to be like exploit the opportunities down the channel when they present themselves, but don't let Jamaica do that to you, and kind of put them under pressure as quickly as you can, and then don't overcommit on Darren Maddox. And maybe don't let Romario Williams shoot from distance.
Yes, he's worth talking about, right? Because most people won't know too much about him. He is an Atlanta player on loan at Charleston Battery. We happen to have seen him 2 or 3 times, because Charleston Battery come down and come up, I guess, from their perspective, and play the Richmond Kickers, where we are. And we've seen Romario Williams a few times, really dangerous centre forward. Will shoot from anywhere, as I believe Canada learned. It was a really good strike. And he's very good at the hustle and bustle of making your life difficult.
Yes, very much so.
And tough to get the ball off of as well. He's kind of, he'll shield the ball very nicely.
And he's obviously not short of confidence. He's done big things in USL this season, and then did big things, scored against Canada from distance, maybe got a little bit of a favorable deflection. But either way, it still has represents the confidence he has in shooting from distance, in going at defenders, in kind of opening up space for other players to go into. Definitely worth keeping an eye on.
And we thought/hoped for a second that maybe he was suspended, because he got a yellow against Mexico, and he got a yellow early in the tournament. Turns out yellows reset after the quarters. So no one will be suspended for the final.
They will not. Other important rule change worth noting before we move on is that whereas in the quarterfinal and semifinal rounds it went straight to penalties, in the final there will be extra time if the situation calls for it.
Did you read that in the official CONCACAF documentation?
I sure did, and I also read that if it does go to extra time, then each team gets an additional substitute.
Oh, so you could see 4 subs. Yeah.
If someone
hasn't heard this preview, they're going to be surprised when they see that 4th sub come in.
if that happens.
I imagine a room where everyone's like, wait, what happened? How many have we had?
So we are a U.S.-based podcast, so maybe let's talk about what the USA can do to make sure that we don't go to extra time.
But first, we should talk about that free kick.
Okay.
Because that was the big moment for Jamaica, was Kamar Lawrence stepping up, putting that free kick past Corona in the Mexico goal. I'm still scratching my head about this. Why did Corona not move?
So I have a theory.
Why did Corona not dive? He took a couple steps right.
He did.
And then really did watch that ball go in not the top corner, but watched it go past him.
I think maybe he took the wrong angle when he set up the wall, but I think the key thing is that he set up his wall in the wrong spot. So it was like too close to the far post, essentially. So
it didn't cover enough of it, right? It was too far tucked in?
I think so. And then he was too far to the left, which is something that Brad Friedel spotted.
Yes.
And I think the key thing there is not even necessarily that he then couldn't get back across the goal. I think he could have. I think if he dove, he could have saved that. He could have pushed it over the bar or maybe even just parried it back out into play. But I think he thought he was in the center of the goal when he was out to the left.
Oh, you said this earlier, yeah.
Yeah, so like we've both seen goalkeepers do that. Well, they'll sort of like go to the post and then they'll be standing next to the post, and so they'll know, oh, that ball is going wide because it's a yard to the to the right of me and I'm at the post, so it's going wide. And it felt like he did that. It felt like he kind of shuffled over and thought, okay, I'm on the post now. The ball. Oh wait, nope, the post is 2 yards away from me. That ball's in the back of the net.
So he kind of thought he started in the centre, but he actually started too far to the left. So then his judgment of where Kamar Lawrence's free kick was going, he was off by 2 or 3 feet.
I think so.
And that's why he watched it go in when he thought he'd be watching it go wide.
And I think the key thing there, because then you would think, well, like, no, it's just that he realizes he can't get to it in time. We've seen goalkeepers do that where they're just so stunned by the delivery. But if you watch, he tries to move at the very last second, like, oh no, it's going in, and then like you can see
like
him
a last second flinch,
and to me that speaks to, oh, it's going wide, and then realizing very quickly, oh, it's not, and trying to react, but by then it's obviously way too late.
So is that based on the fact that we think it's Corona in the wrong spot and setting his wall up incorrectly? That doesn't mean suddenly that Kamar Lawrence, is like a terrifying free kick threat, and we should all be really scared of him.
I mean, if he put one,
because Tim Howard will put the wall right.
If he put one in, he can put another in, is what I'll say. Now, if it's him taking it, because there were like 4 people standing over it at one point.
Actually, didn't he walk up and just eventually wave everybody off and be like, no, I'm taking it?
Yes, I think so. Maybe he just my guess would be that maybe he spotted that the wall was set up improperly and maybe noticed that nobody else had noticed that. And so he was just sort of like, all right, well, like, this is the situation. I'm going to go ahead and do this now, and do what he did.
All right, we're going to move on to talk about what the US should do against Jamaica now that we've sort of laid the groundwork of what Jamaica are all about. But before we do, we should let you know today's show is sponsored by Ruffneck Scarves. Ruffneck Scarves are the official scarf providers of US Soccer, Major League Soccer, NCAA, and USL.
So if you want to support Romario Williams or the Charleston Battery, you could do that. They're the official scarf providers of the USL.
Someone may be doing that in San Francisco. Is that where Levi Stadium is?
That might be unlikely. I mean, it's a commute for Charleston fans. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. There might be someone relocated. You never know.
You never know.
We'll keep an eye out for it. More likely, there'll be lots of US soccer scarves, US men's national team scarves being waved proudly at Levi Stadium.
Maybe a couple Total Soccer Show scarves? Maybe.
We'll keep our eye on the TV for one. Yeah.
Okay.
What we would
We're keeping our eye out for a lot of things now. You're committing us to eyes out. I just want you to know that.
We're going to have to be 2 Chavis. We did get a tweet a couple of days ago from Luke. Luke Torville sent us a tweet of him with a Ruffneck Scarves scarf. I don't know, can't remember the game he was at. But he definitely sent us a picture of him with a Ruffneck scarf. Here's the thing we want to do. If you are at a game, whether it's the Gold Cup final or any other game over the next couple of weeks, send us a picture of you with a Ruffneck scarf. Maybe show us the tag. Luke also took a photo of the tag to prove it was Ruffneck. Right?
I see.
To prove it was a Ruffneck scarf. And we'll make sure to retweet it so everybody can see the support you are showing.
That works for me.
Both for the Total Soccer Show and for the team you're watching.
I like it. And what can people do if they don't yet have a Ruffneck scarf but would like to get one?
At a discount, you would go to ruffneckscarves.com. The link is in the show notes. You can use the discount code TOTALSOCCERSHOW, all one word. Total Soccer Show, all one word, for 20% off. 20% off the cost of a scarf that regular people have to pay. Don't be a regular people. Get 20% off with that discount code. Ruffneckscarves.com.
Thank you to Ruffneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show. Now, Shall we talk some USA?
Yeah, let's do it. So, USA v Jamaica. We've definitely talked about Jamaica. We think we have a rough idea of what they're going to do. That, to recap, they're going to sort of sit back in a low block, like 4-4-2 more or less, 4-4-1 behind the ball, usually, with maybe Romario Williams floating, Matic's ready to break, and they'll break with not too many men, all of which means they're going to be tough to break down. I'll tell you what I don't want the US to do is keep crossing the ball over and over and over.
Nope.
Because that did not work for Mexico. Jamaica will sort of give you the wings to cross over and over and over, but you probably won't score. So what could the US do instead, Taylor?
I mean, there's an obvious answer here, and it goes against what I said at the end of our review show, the USA-Costa Rica review show, which is that I think it might be start Clint Dempsey.
Why so? Why Clint Dempsey for this game?
Because I think if the United States is going to be kind of aggressive, but also keeping possession, working the ball around, finding their opportunities, I think as we saw against Costa Rica, Clint Dempsey is a player who can unlock defenses, who can just have one or two quick little touches, and that's all he needs to create space and find an opportunity.
Like a clever turn to trick a midfielder or a defender, and then like a clever outside of the foot pass. I mean, you put two of those through, right?
Now, don't get me wrong. I think, in my mind, Clint Dempsey at this point is still more of an impact sub, in my opinion. But in games like this, and especially since, as you've pointed out on a number of occasions, it's the final game of this tournament, so then he'll have time to rest, at least from a U.S. standpoint now. Sounders fans might not love this this decision if it's what happens, but I think it makes sense to go with him, especially with how lively he looked and how confident he looked. Plus, it's Clint Dempsey. He's competitive. He probably wants to break that goal-scoring record.
But is he the only player capable of unlocking a defence?
On this team?
Couldn't a central Darlington Nagbe do it? I guess not to the degree of Dempsey.
I mean, maybe, but I don't think so. And I think, if anything, I'd rather have Darlington Nagbe coming inside to complement Clint Dempsey, as we saw him do.
Left?
Yeah. In fact, I think it's not very dissimilar. What I would like to see is not very dissimilar from what we saw against Costa Rica.
Okay, so you want to get straight to lineup then? So
Sure.
You want to see a sort of a 4-4-2.
Yep.
I'm assuming Tim Howard at goal, because why wouldn't it be? I'm going to assume Gonzalez and Beasler as the two centre backs.
Jeff Cameron and John Brooks would be great, but yeah.
Would. But Gonzalez, we've been into our complaints about Omar Gonzalez. I will say in this game, if you want someone like in a one-on-one foot race with Romario Williams and you've maybe got to be a bit strong and just make sure you get to the ball first, maybe Omar's your man.
It is like a reactionary sort of game, and especially because they're not committing lots of numbers forward, and you're not having like three come and then three more come.
So there's not so much marking to organise.
Well, yeah, and there's not so much like paying attention to the guy coming through the middle and notifying your teammates, which is something that we've been critical of Omar Gonzalez for.
Yeah.
So I think, that probably makes sense.
He may be better suited.
And then in Villafania and Graham Zusi, as we talked about, it's basically the pace on the counter. And I think you want someone who can hang with that but can still contribute offensively.
And the pace on the defending, right? If Darren Matic is going to try and burst past you, you don't want a slow fullback. And neither Zusi or Villafania are slow. Yeah. They're probably not as fast as Matic, but at least they've got a chance of keeping up with him.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, or at least slowing him down.
It's like, I don't know if this has happened yet or not, but Michael Phelps versus Shark.
I believe that happened last night. I don't know who won.
I'm going to assume the Shark won.
Maybe that would make sense.
But Michael Phelps has the best chance. He has a better chance than you or I.
I love that. It's like the old joke about deer hunting, where it's like only one side of you knows that you're playing this game, like in terms of deer versus gun. Yeah. Pretty sure the shark didn't know that he was competing in a swimming competition.
They put a little hat on him.
Pretty sure his entire life is a swim competition. So, well, then again, Michael Phelps' entire life is a swim competition.
They put Speedos and a hat on him, so he should have known.
That seems unfair.
All right, but I also think Beasler alongside Gonzalez. Yeah. We didn't talk about him on the Costa Rica review show.
Not so much.
Apart from that weird back pass that went out of bounds, I feel like Beasler was more or less flawless.
I mean, I think he was a little bit like, how do you say, sloppy at times. Like, I think he had that pass that you mentioned. There was a couple other ones where, like, the first pass to Omar Gonzalez would be like maybe 2 or 3 yards away from him when it should have just been right to feet. So there were some moments where maybe his passing wasn't as sharp as we would like. But yeah, there were no catastrophic errors, which is a good thing.
Yeah. All right, so there's your back four.
Yep.
And I think I'm good with that. Midfield is maybe apart from the Dempsey decision, midfield is the trickiest. Yeah. I'm going to say 4 across the middle, because we seem to keep doing that, and because it's a good way to go at Jamaica. Michael Bradley, and I believe Kellyn Acosta has earned the right to keep that starting spot for that last game. Not just because I like him, but also because he finally did all the movement that we talked about, and that's going to be necessary to break Jamaica down.
I think he did more of the movement. We obviously saw him still getting yelled at times, and still kind of like having, as we talked about, having to do that extra second of thought of like, oh wait, no, I'm trying to do this right.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering if maybe another game, and especially in a final, is what he needs to get him more of that sort of like really high competitive match experience. So I think that makes sense for me, especially with him being a little bit further forward forward.
The alternative would be Darlington Nagbe with Michael Bradley in central midfield, which would guarantee movement and moving the ball quickly. Because that's one of the things we want to see the US do against this Jamaica team, right? If Jamaica sit deep, we don't want the US to pass it, put the foot on it, look around, be slow. Like Nagbe Bradley gives you that sort of high tempo passing.
It's not going to happen.
Why is that?
Because famous last words. It may very well happen, but I do think, and we've talked about this a number of times in this tournament, and then Bruce Arena has proved us wrong.
Yeah.
But this is a Bruce Arena team, and it doesn't feel to me like he is going to make big changes where Nagbe, you played here before, but now we're going to bring you here, and then we're going to drop this guy, and we're going to put some it just doesn't feel like it's going to be that much experimentation going into a final. So I feel like it's going to be. Really, it could be that exact same midfield. It really might be the same 11, except maybe Clinton Dempsey comes in.
Yeah.
And the only other change I might see is Jordan Morris coming in place of Paul Arriola.
Okay, so that would be like the US team that was on the field after the Dempsey-Arriola sub, right? Because it was Dempsey and Josie Altidore up front, and Jordan Morris moved out to the right wing.
Yeah.
So that would give us a midfield of Morris on the right, which I'm not sure about now that I say that out loud because it sounds like not defensive enough. Bradley Acosta in the middle and Darlington Nagbe on the left wing, and then Dempsey and Altidore up front.
Yeah, and I guess I don't mean to, I'm not trying to discredit Jamaica because they eliminated the United States last tournament and then, have gotten where they are right now. Yeah, but I'm not as worried because, as we said, they're not going to send so many numbers forward. So, and I think Jordan Morris, we talked about on the review show, did a little bit better of a job, at least I think he did, I'm not sure if it was intentional or not, of not coming all the way back to help Graham Zusi, that he kind of stayed forward, and I think that caused some problems for Costa Rica. And I want a player who's going to be up there and being aggressive and trying to create goal-scoring chances and not doing 50% attack and 50%, let me come back and help Graham Zusi. I want somebody who's just going to be like, nope, you got to deal with that, man. I'm staying forward.
Fair enough. Okay, so it seems like we kind of settled on a 4-4-2 and who's going to be in it. I want to throw some random ideas at you.
Sure.
For example, if we're worried about Alvis Powell getting forward, maybe Jesse Zardes is the man to play on the left wing and he will track him.
I mean, I refuse, much like you're not allowed to write off a German national team in the beginning of a major tournament, I refuse to write off Bruce Arena ever using Jesse Zardes. So yes, there's always a chance that Jesse Zardes starts.
Or it could be Jesse Zardes on the right instead of Morris, and maybe Morris goes to the bench. Okay. I'm also, we guarantee...
Let me say this. In fact, I don't think that is particularly unlikely because Jesse Zardes seems like one of those players that Bruce Arena favors because he's going to do what he needs to do.
He's like his Alex Ferguson player. You know, Alex Ferguson loved a Park Hee-sung. He would do the job.
It's John O'Shea as well.
I feel like Zardes is Bruce Arena's guy. I mean, he was Klinsmann's guy for that as well. I think Zardes is that guy.
Man, there are some eerie similarities between Zardes and Park Ji-sung. Yep.
Right?
Runs a lot, does what he's told, works hard, terrible first touch. Scores occasional goals.
Yeah, there we go. Yep. There we go. And one of them has a Champions League winners medal.
Also that. Zardes, right?
Yes, it is. So I'm also thinking about Josie Altidore. We haven't really talked about him yet, but I think he had a really good game against Costa Rica. I think he could be the man to bully these Jamaican defenders. We said it was Jermaine Taylor and is it Damian Lowe? I think it is.
It is not Onandi Lowe.
It is not Onandi Lowe.
Former Richmond kicker striker.
Which would be in a weird position, right? They did look kind of clumsy in terms of falling over and a bit like sticking your leg out and hoping that's okay. I saw a couple of times could have easily conceded penalties against Mexico. I see Josie giving them a real challenge in terms of not just a strength battle, but a sort of a clever movement battle that ends with possibly Jamaica conceding a penalty kick.
Yeah, and I want to go back to your point about them looking a little bit disjointed at times, which is another reason why I wouldn't mind seeing Clinton Dempsey in there, because they reminded me of Omar Gonzalez at times, where on multiple occasions we saw both of them go for the same cross, both Jamaica center backs,
Lowe and Taylor,
and then all of a sudden you had in one situation both of them went for the cross and then just stopped, and you had Eric Cubo Torres wide open in the middle, and if he puts that header either side of the goalkeeper, it's going in. But
that was Cubo Torres' moment, wasn't it? That game, and then he was subbed out at half-time.
Yeah, not great. But so I do think that if you have Josie making a run, maybe both those center backs go with him, and Clinton Dempsey is smart enough to find the space in behind, and suddenly he is open. Now again, that is saying that the United States is going to be crossing, and I really don't want to see a bunch of crosses coming in. But I just think, there's definitely opportunities there because those center backs did look a little bit scrambling at times. It looked a little bit like less of a rigid game plan and more of like, I'll go, okay, no, I'll go. And
that's it. It's very reactive defending.
Yes.
I think when I said clumsy, maybe
thank you for finding
harsh.
a way to summarize my rambling. Good
no,
job.
but you've summarized my point about saying clumsy makes it sound like all their limbs are uncoordinated. It's not that at all, right? It's just reactive. It's constantly trying to react to the danger and snuff it out. And then that leads you to the next bit of reactive. And you have just to keep doing it and keep doing it until finally you can give the ball to Javon Watson and be like, oh, he's the dad of that team.
Yep.
Javon Watson is the dad of the Jamaica team.
Oh, speaking of which, thank you very much to whoever on Twitter said that we should call him, was it
Michael Dadley?
Michael Dadley.
Yes. Yep. Wonderful. Thank you.
That's just glorious work there. Thank you, the Twitters. So, any other simulations or theoretical lineups you wanted to throw at me, or we covered it all?
I wanted to get to one thing that you mentioned while we were watching, and we were thinking about ways that the US could break down Jamaica, knowing that Mexico had failed to do so, and that you used the word triangles.
Yeah. I mean, it's essentially you don't want to be in a situation where it's just like a guy on the wing, say it is Darlington Nagbe on the left, sort of getting the ball, turning, and then realizing he's got nobody around him. He's got two Jamaican defenders in front of him, and then he has to either hoof the ball into the box and hope, or he has to drop it all the way back. I think what I want to see and what we all want to see is if Nagbe's up there on the left side, that he's got Villafana supporting, that maybe Kellen Acosta's coming over, or Josie Altidore making a run into the channel, and so he's got multiple options at any time. And the triangle is the ideal scenario there, where you can just keep pinging the ball around quickly and pull some players out, find some space, and make some things happen.
I'll say this: we did it against Costa Rica. We moved the ball quickly. We had men moving all over the field. We kept seeing Nagbe coming inside and Acosta going out left, and a lot of movement where Acosta going high, and a lot of movement that opened up spaces. We did it to Costa Rica. We can do it to Jamaica.
Yes, and I think that's the key thing for if you're a U.S. fan, if you're the United States, is that you want to be doing things to Jamaica. And what I think went wrong for Mexico is that they started to play Jamaica's game a little bit. It got a little physical. 6 cards in that game. Jamaica got the last 4, but Mexico got the first 2. And I think it started to be kind of physical, a little bit like kick it long, a little bit let's run at people individually, let's slow it down a little bit, and the pace kind of suffered. And I think that's what Jamaica want. They're going to sit back, as you said, so they're content for things to be slow. For the United States, exactly like we talked about against Costa Rica, you want somebody maybe putting the ball into the net in the first minute as opposed to hitting the bar, but you want to go at them and keep going at them early. You don't want to slow down. You don't want to get into kind of a slugfest. You want it to be quick passing, quick tempo, working hard, and try to kill the game in the first 15 minutes.
And shoot from distance occasionally.
Maybe.
But let's not lean too heavily on that.
No.
Because I thought Mexico made that mistake as well. There are a few too many shots from distance, and then you let Jamaica know your defending's working. This is the best we've got.
Because I think especially that happened in the last 10 minutes of the first half, and that felt very much like Jamaica's game plan had worked so well that it became a thing for Mexico of I'm going to be the one. I'm just going to make it happen. Nothing else is working, so I'm going to cut inside and shoot from 30 yards out.
Oh, okay. So USA-Jamaica is Wednesday night.
There it
Nearly
is.
said Sunday. Wednesday night, 9:30 Eastern. It's on Fox Sports 1 and Univision.
Bueno.
That rhymes. Fox Sports 1 and Univision. We believe it's a 9:30 Eastern kickoff, maybe a couple of minutes after, but tune in at 9:30 just in case.
Yeah, and maybe baseball will still be going this time.
It probably will. We'll be the bottom of the 15th.
And then we're leaning towards doing quick take, hot take, and then full review that evening, correct?
So definitely quick take, hot take, because it isn't a quick take, hot take unless we do it immediately after the final whistle. And then if we're wide awake, we'll do the full review. If we're not wide awake, we'll come back and do the full review the next day.
I just realized that you have once again, because this is going to be the last show we do until we do that quick take, hot take, you have once again finagled your way into doing the quick take, hot take editing. You jerk.
We can flip a coin for it. We can flip a coin if we have to.
I don't like you anymore. Final segment on today's show, Mr. Grove?
It is the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 scouting reports about up-and-comers in today's scouting reports.
There we are. Up
would you
first.
like to start us? Yes, you would.
Sir.
Right.
Michael Curry scouting Haji Wright, the 19-year-old American attacker for FC Schalke. Haji started a preseason friendly for Schalke, but was subbed off at halftime. Not ideal. On the plus side, Weston McKennie also played and assisted on Schalke's opening goal.
Do we have a report on McKennie?
We do not.
We do not, but I saw that assist. It was really good.
It was, and we may have had a report on McKennie from before. That might be... I think we had one recently. He may have reported this goal, so who knows?
Right, but I want more Weston McKennie in my life.
I think we all do. Hopefully Schalke do as well.
Up next, Louis Graffel is scouting Joshua Kimmich, the 22-year-old German defender. midfielder for Bayern Munich. Lewis says, things appear to be looking up for Kimmich. With the retirement of Philipp Lahm, there's a hole at right back that needs to be filled. Although both Kimmich and Ancelotti seem to prefer Joshua in midfield, Bayern CEO Karl-Heinz Rummenigge has said that Kimmich will be the club's first choice right back this season.
Odd that the CEO is the one who's making this statement, not the manager.
This is a very Bayern problem, right? There's always a lot of interference from the top, from the old guys.
Indeed.
Yeah.
But I guess if the problem you're having is that Joshua Kimmich might start at right back as opposed to midfield because you've got a lot of other talent in a lot of other places, maybe it's not that big of a problem.
It's better than here's Fernando Torres, I spent 50 million on him, do something with him.
There's that. Up next, Tim Welsh scouting Ademola Lookman, the 19-year-old English attacker for Everton. Lookman was one of the stars of England's winning U20 World Cup squad.
He certainly was.
And is now looking to break into the Everton first team. He helped set up a Wayne Rooney goal in pre-season and appears to have impressed Everton U23 coach David Unsworth.
All right, Ira Jersey. Hi, Ira. Is scouting Ashley Sanchez, the 18-year-old American forward for the US under-23s.
Key point there.
After going on a European tour to England with the U20 women's national team, Ashley Sanchez was one of 4 non-college players brought into a U23 training camp in Seattle. All right. Onwards and upwards, Ashley Sanchez.
Up next, Jed Webb scouting Serge Gnabry, the 21-year-old German winger on loan at Hoffenheim from Bayern Munich. Again, they have lots of talent. Serge Gnabry came on in a Hoffenheim kit for the first time in the second half of a friendly against Genoa, and within minutes notched an assist for Hoffenheim's equalizer. They eventually lost 3-2, but it's good to see Gnabry being effective early on in his Hoffenheim career.
Alex C. Brew is scouting Davy Selke, the 22-year-old German forward for Hertha Berlin.
You get some blame here.
This is a good indication there are many, many good German youngsters. They're filling up the scouting network. What? Okay. Thanks to Daryl's England under-21 side, Selke is still nursing an injured ankle he picked up in the U21 Euro semi-final. I'm actually relieved. I thought I'd personally done something wrong. The Hertha Berlin record signing has been training by himself and is eagerly awaiting clearance from the medical staff to get onto the pitch. But Alec and Davey, on behalf of my countrymen, I apologise.
You do have to, for pausing for a moment, I do actually kind of feel bad for Davy Selke in this situation because it basically is he's gone to a new club, has high expectations, but is injured, and so it's like watching his teammates train and you're just sort of like, I know I'm supposed to be here, I know I'm supposed to be doing stuff, everyone's getting fit and I'm not, let me play. So hopefully he gets on there sooner rather than later.
They're all blasting goals past Jonathan Klinsmann in practice at Hertha Berlin.
Up next, John Adams.
Which one?
Not that one, but yes, that one at the same time. Scouting Shaun Harrison, the 20-year-old English striker for Tottenham. Tottenham's U23s played another preseason match this week against Cambridge United. Spurs won the match 3-2, with Shaun scoring all 3 goals. He got a hat-trick.
Get in there, Shaun.
That brings his preseason total with Spurs U squad to 4 goals and an assist this summer.
Not too shabby. Chris Davey is scouting Eric Aguirre, the 20-year-old Mexican defender. I'm going to say slash winger after the game I saw.
Or central midfielder.
For Pachuca. Chris says a solid pre-season, along with Pachuca's lack of central midfield depth, has helped Aguirre secure a spot in the first team, and he started at centre defensive midfield in the team's season opener against Pumas. Eric played 62 minutes and looked defensively sound, even though Los Tuzos, which I'm assuming is the Pachuca nickname,
I'm guessing so,
lost 1-0.
Would you prefer like Las Pachucas? Is that what you're hoping for?
It'd be too easy, right?
A little bit. And also incorrect. So there you go.
Well, thank you to Michael, Lewis, Tim, Ira, Guy, Alec, John and Chris for the scouting reports today. And I had time to do some surreptitious looking on Twitter. Thank you to Chris Crubb for the Michael Dadley
There you
line.
go.
Thank you, Chris Crubb, for
Thank
the
you,
Michael
Chris.
Dadley line.
And if you don't know what that's about, I guess go back and listen to the USA Costa Rica review show, and it's in there somewhere.
Yes. So, thank you to everybody for the scouting reports. If you'd like to join the Total Soccer Show Scouting Network, the URL is totalsoccershow.com/join.
What's the URL?
It's the country way of saying URL.
Gotcha. Is it?
It's like I am Earl.
URL. There you go. I'm with you now.
The I am Earl is totalsoccershow.com/join. If you've got reports to send, it's totalsoccershow.com/report. Okay, until Wednesday night, Taylor Rockwell. Thank you, sir, for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. Wednesday morning, there'll be a new episode of the Top Draw Soccer Show, where Will Parchman and I will be chatting some youth development soccer. We'll be comparing development academies, MLS development academies. So take a look for Top Draw Soccer, all one word, search for it in iTunes or any other pod player.
I will do just that.
Please do.
In all of them. Even though I've already subscribed,
yes,
I will then...
You can subscribe like 10 times in 10 different players.
Sure.
I have no problem with that. You got to download it every week for the 10 times
I think
well.
Silicon Valley taught me that I wasn't allowed to do that, otherwise you get in trouble.
What was the name they gave to that?
To what?
To
shoot, it's not data mining. I forget what it is, but yeah, it's basically when you're having people just create fake accounts.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
let's not do that.
Let's not do that.
If you listen,
seems
iTunes,
expensive.
We don't
so
do
I'm not
that.
going to do that.
Also
Yeah.
that, yeah. So yeah, thank you everybody for listening. We'll be back Wednesday night after the Gold Cup final with a quick take, hot take of USA, Jamaica.